Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com with some off-the-charts junk science by National Geographic. They published this article 2 years ago, off-the-charts heat to affect millions in U.S. in coming decades. In less than 20 years, millions of people in the United States could be exposed to dangerous off-the-charts heat conditions of 127 degrees Fahrenheit or more. And they published this map, Dangerous Days Ahead, showing there was going to be a huge increase in the number of very hot days, particularly in the eastern half of the United States. I thought their map was interesting because it shows the exact opposite of the trends from the National Climate Assessment over the last 120 years. This map was from the last official U.S. government National Climate Assessment from 2018. It shows that peak temperatures in the eastern half of the United States are much lower than they were prior to 60 years ago. The length of warm spells is down, the intensity of heat waves is down, and the warmest temperature is also down from 80 years ago. The trends over the last 80 or 90 years as carbon dioxide has increased in the atmosphere are the exact opposite of what National Geographic is predicting. Let's take a look at the National Geographic map again. It shows that there will be a huge increase in the amount of hot weather in Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. So now let's look at what the trends have been over the past century in that region. The average maximum temperature in those 6 states was much higher prior to 60 years ago than it is now. The percent of days above 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius has plummeted over the past century. And it's the same story with the percent of days above 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius. They're much less common now than they were prior to 60 years ago. And the same story with the frequency of days above 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius. They used to be pretty common during the 1930s, but they very rarely happen anymore. This graph plots the frequency of 95-degree days versus the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere over the past century. It's very clear that as atmospheric carbon dioxide has increased to the right, the frequency of hot days has decreased. The argument being made in the National Geographic article is that increasing carbon dioxide causes more hot days, but the trend is the exact opposite of what they're claiming. The great American physicist Dr. Richard Feynman said, "It doesn't matter how beautiful your theory is. If it doesn't agree with experiment, it's wrong." National Geographic published an article designed to scare the readers into believing that they're going to burn up. They included this very detailed map, but there's no factual basis to what they're saying. It does not agree with the observed trends, and there's no reason to believe that it's legitimate. In 1988, Dr. James Hansen of NASA started the global warming scare before Congress with some very similar predictions. December 12, 1988, prepare for long, hot summers. If you liked last summer's record temperatures, you're going to love the 1990s, says James Hansen, the NASA scientist who during congressional hearings on the Midwestern drought linked greenhouse warming to the heat wave. Last summer was a preview of the average summer 10 years from now, and the hottest summers during the 1990s will be even hotter and drier than the one we just struggled through, he says. He also predicted that there was going to be a huge increase in the number of hot days at Washington, D.C., and that the level of the ocean will rise anywhere from 1 to 6 feet. But his forecasts were completely wrong. As it turned out, 1988 was the last really hot summer we had in the Midwest. This is the graph for the summer percent of days above 95 degrees Fahrenheit or 35 degrees Celsius in Ohio. Summers since 1988 have generally not had a lot of hot days, and over the past decade it's been close to a record low. And as far as Hansen's forecast for Washington, D.C. goes, there's also been a sharp decline over the last 80 or 90 years in the number of hot days. Purcellville, Virginia is the closest United States Historical Climatology Network station in Virginia to Washington, D.C. The hottest summer in the Washington, D.C. area occurred in 1930. There's been a strong downward trend in the number of hot days at Purcellville for at least 110 years. Summers in the United States used to be much hotter, and heat used to kill a lot of people. In 1936, it was reported that 12,000 people died from the heat in 86 cities in 1 week. The only thing which is off the charts now is the amount of junk science which is coming from magazines like National Geographic and their friends in the climate science community. These people have no idea what they're talking about, and they're simply selling fear porn. Toto's been pulling back the curtain on this nonsense for the past 13 years. You can visit him and Kyrie on the web at realclimatescience.com.